Mr. Harris,
Yes, sir.
you pled or you were found guilty of killing three
Yes,
in
sir.
the, were those at different times? Tell me about the time in between each.
According to the records, it was from February 13, I believe, until April 6, I believe.
Okay, so length of time of what? And there was a fourth murder. Did you commit that one too?
I was found not guilty.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of the French Quarter stabber. Yes, this serial killer had a name, he had a pattern, he was a poster child for a serial killer. And because he was a child, just 16 years old at the time, he now has an opportunity for parole. With that, let's jump in.
Serving a life sentence on 3 murders. You were sentenced in 1977 to life sentence. And at the time, I think you were 16 years old.
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. All right. Your case today has been signed to Ms. Ledoux. Please answer any records that she may have.
Good morning, Mr.
Any
Harris.
questions?
Good morning, ma'am.
Mr. Harris, I don't know that I've seen anyone as diligent to try to get their GED as you have been. How many times have you taken the GED class, the testing?
Ma'am, it has been maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and you worked hard to get that. You just received that last year?
Yes, ma'am.
So Mr. Harris, you were a juvenile lifer and were you resentenced or were you just given parole? Did you have to go back to court to be resentenced?
I was resentenced, yes, ma'am.
And in what year was that?
I believe in 22, ma'am. I'm not certain. You may have to speak with my attorney concerning that.
I would like, yes, ma'am, would you confirm what date he was resentenced?
2021, I believe it was in.
That's okay, just the year's fine,
Okay.
2021. Okay. The reason I'm asking that question is because although you've had 128 write-ups,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
last one occurred in 17.
Yes, ma'am.
It was 4 years before you knew you had an opportunity maybe to get out. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened? What flipped the switch in 17 finally? Why did you stop having problems in prison in 2017?
I stopped being around negative individuals, ma'am, and allow myself to only affiliate with positive individuals who were doing positive things. I engaged in my fellowship regularly. That took up most of my time.
Well, I note that you did get involved in faith-based activities around that time.
Yes, ma'am, I have.
You started engaging in a lot of the opportunities in that particular subculture of the prison, the faith community.
Yes, ma'am. I come from a Christian background. My family has always been spiritual believers, and I continue.
Well, are you restarted? Because
Yeah,
looks like you weren't in the right track for many years there.
I was not. No, I was not, ma'am.
I read the background of the case itself. Pretty heinous crime.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility, ma'am.
Okay.
I really do, and I regret that had ever happened.
So you have taken victim awareness.
Yes, ma'am, I have.
I want to hear in your own words, Mr. Harris, why should we consider letting you out?
I have rehabilitated myself. Uh, God has allowed me to reevaluate my life and set out on a positive course. That positive course had led me to obtain several certificates in healthcare provider. I'm skilled in landscaping, as various other trades, janitorial, and at present I am a academic GED literacy student. And I feel that I will be able to contribute to society in which the community I will live if given the opportunity.
Were you personally aware of any of your victims, or were these chance happenings? Do you know
No,
if
ma'am, I wasn't familiar with any. No, ma'am. I was not.
In your record, it indicates that you haven't had family visits, but I do see that you have your sister and a niece. So you've been having
Yes.
visits pretty often at the
Ma'am,
state penitentiary.
only when they are able to. My baby sister, whenever she can, she's here. My niece, whenever she's available and has the time, she will come also.
What is your greatest challenge looking at possible parole? Do you have any concerns, or what is your greatest concern if you get out?
Ma'am, I have a few nephews. I have one that I constantly pray for, and I wish to reach him before anything happened to him or before he winds up in prison. Not just him, maybe a few of his friends. You know, I would like to reach him.
I'm gonna reserve the right to come back and ask more questions later, but at this time, Mr. Freeman, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Mr. President, you have any questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Harris,
Yes, sir.
you pled or you were found guilty of killing three.
Yes, sir.
Were those at different times? Tell me about the time in between each.
It was different times.
How long was it between each one? I'm trying to understand the crime. I don't care about the gory details.
According to the records, it was from February 13, I believe, until April 6, I believe.
Okay, so length of time, what? And there was a fourth murder. Did you commit that one too?
I was found not guilty. I was found not guilty, sir.
Okay. Did these all take place at the same place?
The same area, within the same area, sir.
Okay. And I'm trying to distinguish and find out, it sounds almost like a serial killer, okay? I mean, that's, with my background, that's what it sounds like. So what was the MO of this serial killer?
I understand. I was a young juvenile, teenager, no sense of direction, a high school dropout, swallowing all kind of pills and anything you could think of at that time, you know. And I just sorry it happened. And I just wasn't in the right state of mind, sir.
Yes, I mean, did you set these murders up in order to rob the people? Or
No,
was-
sir. It was not a setup. It was not a setup at all.
Then why didn't you?
I was in need of money to support the drugs I was using at the time. I became affiliated with some of the victims, and was asked to accompany them to their home. And at the time, when we entered the home, I robbed and killed those men, and I regret it. And I'm so sorry every day. I regret it.
That's all that I have. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Okay, Mr. Harris, I just have one question. What have you done to address your drug problem since you've been in Angola?
I have taken drug courses, living in balance, step 1 and 2.
You plan
I will,
up when you get out?
sir.
Do you plan on following up if you
Yes,
were
sir.
to?
Yes, sir. I will certainly follow up.
And I'm sure Mr. Myers will have some stuff to say about that when he speaks. Okay, I have no further questions. So now we will go to the family. First, Roberta Harris, sister-in-law.
That's me.
Okay, you want to speak first?
Oh, on behalf of Warren, I just wanted to.
You can go up there to the podium, ma'am.
On behalf of Warren, I am his sister-in-law. I met Warren, through his brother David. I'm married to David. Met Warren in '76 when his brother and I met. When I met Warren, he was, this kind and gentle person. He stayed right next door to the grandmother, Miss Julia. And Warren was always taking care. He looked out for her. He made sure she had everything. He made sure his mother had everything. He made sure his siblings had everything. But like he admitted, with the drugs that he got a hold of to, it just did something to his mind to just make him do things out of the ordinary. But he was raised in a Christian family. His grandfather was a minister. His mother sang in the choir. They were required to go to church on Sunday. But like you said, once he got out into the streets and those drugs got a hold of his mind and his brain, dropped out, and then we just don't know what happened from there. But we still love him.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you. Okay, Mr. Kerry Myers.
Good morning, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. This board already knows Mr. Harris was 16 years old, addicted, had been addicted for some time before he committed these crimes. We also know that 16-year-olds and addiction can lead to some horrible consequences. We know why the brain science says that juveniles are different. But Mr. Harris, I think Ms. LaDuce said it correctly, 7 years ago, the light completely clicked on before he knew he was going to be parole eligible. And he rededicated his life spiritually. He worked very hard on his GED, his programs. Mr. Harris is now not a 16-year-old addicted child. He is a 64-year-old man who has served 46 years for these crimes. He has a support system. One of the things that will happen immediately, address any concerns that you may have about that, Mr. Freeman, is he will get an evaluation, substance abuse and mental health evaluation from our social work staff. And we'll make sure that any recommendations are followed through that. Not only that, after 46 years, from a 16-year-old now to a 64-year-old man, he's going to need the type of services that we can provide, that in essence, detoxification from the institutionalization that he's been involved in for the last 46 years. And that's what our program is absolutely geared to do. He will learn technology. He will, in steps, he will learn social norms, which are certainly different from when he entered prison. He will have the ability to continue to access our social work department. He will learn financial management. He is still healthy. He is still employable. He has employment waiting for him. His sister has offered him housing and has been supportive throughout this time. We're here to help him through that for as long as it needs to be. And once he's completed our program, Mr. Harris has a strong support system. So we would just ask this board to consider the fact that, you know, he is not the 16-year-old addicted child that committed these crimes. Regardless, it's you can't minimize any of the actions. They were horrific, but this is the whole capacity to grow and mature is the reason we're here today. And so we'd ask this board to consider all these factors today in making their decision.
Before I go to the subject and the lawyer, Warden Falco, do you have any comments you would like to make?
Yes, sir. Good morning. You know, you were talking about the history of Warren's record, and at one time he did have a Class A trustee status. He worked in beautification for us outside the fences for 8 years. Then 15, lost that on a write-up, had that other write-up in 17. He's worked his way back up to a Class A again. When he did back in 2017, worked his way back up to a Min B. His job was a Union Supply stock clerk for us in the warehouse. He was responsible for a lot of inventory that was worth a lot of money, and those jobs are jobs that we will put inmates in that we can trust to the degree of, even with oversight, that they're going to do a good job for us. And he did that until 18, when he went into his full-time GED. And I think he was 6 times in his GED attempts and finally there, and now he's a tutor. So yeah, he definitely in 17, as you guys stated, has done a good job in turning that corner and maintaining his process and his projection to where he is now. So his focus has changed.
Thank you, Warden.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Harris, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am?
Ms. Palmer hasn't spoken yet.
Oh, okay, I thought he had his speaker. Let's see. No, he hasn't. Ms. Palmer, would you like to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Warren Harris' baby sister. And we all were disobedient to our mother and our grandparents coming up. I was pregnant at 14. I was a grandmother at 40. And throughout the years, we all have turned our lives around and went back to the foundation on which we were brought up on, and that was the foundation of Jesus Christ. I have seen Warren grow throughout the years. We all were in prison those 47 years with Warren. Like I said, we were all disobedient as children, and I got pregnant. I was smoking weed. I was in an abusive relationship with my children's father. But throughout the years, we stayed connected. I had been going to the prison since I was 4 years old. Our father was in jail since 28. Our mother was abandoned by her first husband and then abused by our father, which was in jail for 28 years. Then Warren, he's been in there for 46, and my other brother, he's been back and forth for 15 years. So we've all returned back to the foundation on which we were brought up on. Thank God for that. I've seen Warren mature. He's helped me throughout the years. I've sent photos when photos were accepted. I've sent money throughout the years, visits throughout the years when our mother was living, now that she's gone. Now I'm a great grandmother at the age of 60. So Warren has been like a father, uncle to my children, my grandchildren, and we lean on each other. When I go and visit, I don't just go to visit him. I go because I need him. He's been a support to me with the JP and the emails. He encourages me. He sends me letters and prayers and so I'm here to be here for him till the day God calls us all home. I've seen a change in all of us, how we've changed our lives and living the way our parents really intended us to live. But I thank you all for this opportunity, and I thank my parents for raising us up in this faith base, because 47 years ago, this opportunity was not possible. But we prayed and asked God to forgive us of our sins and to have mercy upon us, to pity us and spare us. And so this day, He has made this day possible. And I thank you for the hope of it. And I thank you for the joy and just the confirmation.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Floresca? You ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless you wanted Warren to speak first, I wasn't sure.
However y'all want to do it. Usually the inmate speaks first, so it's up to you.
We can have Mr. Harris speak first.
Okay, Mr. Harris, your attorneys,
Yes, sir.
want you to speak.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. This morning, I now have the opportunity to address the Sabal family, Palmer family, and the Delano family. This matter should have been addressed years ago, but because of matters concerning contact, I was not able to do so. To each family member of the victims, I sincerely apologize for taking the lives of your loved ones. I'm truly sorry and regret what had happened 46 years ago. Your family has suffered many years missing someone very special who has been taken away from you. I'm truly sorry. During my years of incarceration, guilty feelings has gripped me deeply. My guilt has motivated me to call out to God, asking for His help, for change within myself. My prayer had been answered. God allowed me to reevaluate my life and set me out on a positive course. I become a servant, giving my time and the very little resources I have, helping those who cannot help themselves. I continue praying, asking God to give me the ability and to continue to allow me to be a positive influence to those around me. I'm truly sorry and regret the offense I had committed. I apologize to the community for these crimes were committed. I'm very sorry and very remorseful. I appreciate this opportunity that has been given me. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Floresca, please.
Good morning. My name is Abigail Floresca, and I'm a student attorney at Loyola Law Clinic, representing Mr. Warren Harris. In 1977, Mr. Harris committed devastating, horrible crimes, taking the lives of multiple men and striking fear and pain throughout the community. As you've heard today, Mr. Harris is deeply remorseful and ashamed of his crimes, and he's carried that remorse with him every day for 46 years. In these 46 years, he's channeled that remorse into processing the harm he caused and becoming this mature 63-year-old man he is now today. I know the board is well aware of Miller versus Baldwin, how even children who commit heinous crimes still have the capacity to change. Mr. Harris is truly the personification of that ability to change. His life shows that when children are removed from abuse, drugs, violence, and dysfunction, they can become totally different. 16-year-old Warren ran the streets and didn't follow the rules, as he heard. 63-year-old Mr. Harris is a trustee and hasn't had a write-up in 7 years. 16-year-old Warren did all he could to numb himself with drugs. 63-year-old Mr. Harris finds peace and joy from singing in gospel bands, like the Transformation Gospel Band, the Pure Heart Messengers. His favorite song to sing is Wind Beneath My Wings. 16-year-old Warren sat in his grandfather's church, nodding off high on heroin. 63-year-old Mr. Harris has earned 41 certificates for Bible studies and his contributions to ministries, such as the Leadership Filters. 16-year-old Warren took the lives of multiple men. 63-year-old Mr. Harris takes care of the elderly and the sick in hospice. 16-year-old Warren dropped out of the 8th grade and didn't see a future for himself. 63-year-old Mr. Harris spent 2 decades trying to get his high set, and when he finally earned his diploma, he immediately turned around and became a literacy tutor, helping others achieve the same thing that he did. Mr. Harris has earned a total of 56 certificates for programming and accomplishments throughout his time in prison, and he was dedicated to learning many years before Miller passed, and parole was even a possibility. The board has asked about Mr. Harris's plan for recovery from addiction to drugs, given his history. And Mr. Harris has recognized that recovery is a lifelong process, and he will always be an addict, and that's always going to be a part of his life. But he's willing and ready to join Narcotics Anonymous meetings and anything else that the Parole Project is also going to support him with, finding those resources. I've included in the parole packet a list of local Narcotics Anonymous meetings in the area where he is going to be living. Should the board grant parole, Mr. Harris has the support of his family, his friends, and the Parole Project. As you've heard, the Parole Project is going to help him with reentry and everything that he's going to be needing, navigating, coming to the free worlds after 46 years. His sister Brenda has supported Mr. Harris his entire time in prison, visiting him, supporting him, and she's ready to give back to him as well. Mr. Harris is also hoping to give back, as you've heard, mentoring his 9 grandnieces and nephews, continuing to sing and worship, and doing landscaping, passion he discovered while at Angola, striving to make the world around him more beautiful. The significance of Miller hearings is that children who have spent the majority of their lives incarcerated have the opportunity to show they've changed. And in 46 years, Mr. Harris has done just that. Today, he's a trustee, a man of faith, a literacy tutor, and a source of support to those around him. Pastor Savoy wrote, he has a heart for people and a life that reaches those who seem to be unreachable. In light of the person that Mr. Harris is today, we urge the honorable board to grant Mr. Harris's parole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll vote. Ms. Ledoux, since you have the case, you'll vote first.
Mr. Harris, you have to understand, all of us take this role very, very seriously. And I read all 200 pages of your file several times. And I've gone back and forth on this. Hearing you today was very insightful. You have a low risk assessment on the tools that we are provided with. You have good plans for your release. You have what I consider adequate institutional educational accomplishments. I can't change what you have done in taking the lives of those people. Many times I ask myself before I make a vote, would I live next door to this person? Would I be afraid to live next door to this person? Mr. Harris, there's still some things in your record that concern me, some of the write-ups that you've had, especially the 21s. Okay, I'll be honest. Okay.
21.
21. But at this point, after 47 years of incarceration, I believe that you're ready for the streets. And so my vote today is to grant parole, with the condition that the parole project tune in very carefully to your needs for your giving you the tools to make good decisions. Okay, so my vote is to grant.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brady?
I've heard some very strong arguments and recommendations today, and I applaud you, Mr. Harris, for your growth and the accomplishments that you have accomplished. I think you're truly repentant of what you've done. I think we all have our mission fields in life. I'm a strong believer in that. I truly believe that your mission field is there at Angola, at Louisiana State Penitentiary. And it's similar to, I guess in my mind, it's similar to a person that might smoke and then develop cancer and then quit smoking. They still have the cancer. They still have to pay the price for what they did. And so having said all of that, and considering the fact that you were given 3 life sentences to run consecutively, my vote is to deny.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I looked at this, Mr. Harris, in a lot of ways. You were 16 years old when this occurred. You were on drugs real bad.
Yes.
That does not make any excuses for what you did. It was, like your lawyer said, it was a very horrific crime. But I do feel that you've done all you can do in Angola. That your work is done there, but you have plenty of work left. So my vote today is also going to be to grant to the parole project. Okay, Mr. Myers, I want him very thoroughly drug treatment. I want him to look at that closely. And if he needs inpatient treatment, you get back with us, okay? Gonna do that. Also, I want you to have drug screens 2 times per month for the first 6 months. You fail any of those drug screens, I can promise you, you will be returned. And And that's all the conditions I'm gonna put on you. I'm gonna let you off to put the rest. I thank your family for showing up here today and your representatives. It meant a lot. Like your sister said, y'all need to all grow together.
Thank you, sir.
World's gonna be watching you, I can promise you, so be careful. That's my
Okay.
vote.
Congratulations.
I have to say, Mr. Harris, it's
Yeah.
very difficult to make these kind of choices, okay? And then I appreciate what you've done.
I understand. Thank you, ma'am.
What? What did we just watch? What? Are you guys nuts? Holy cow. This is crazy. You know, when you like hear on the news serial killer paroled and then stab someone to death, this is, and you're like, how is it possible? How is that possible? This is the first article. We'll go through the old newspaper articles Richard found. He was accused of 4, but there was a streak of 5 killings over the same period of time. All the same MO. It was homosexual men that were being found stabbed 50 plus times each in their apartment. We're going to go through the facts, but he confessed he was doing it because of their sexual orientation. This guy is the classic serial killer. You can't make it up. How can you ever parole someone who is a serial killer? I don't care how old they were. It makes no sense. You wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it. You're right, the world will be watching. I cannot, I'm just totally shocked. Mr. Freeman said, I don't know what more Angola can do for you. How about what it can do for the public? Keep our community safe. Are you guys mad? And he was dishonest. He didn't say why he was doing the killing. He said it was because of the money. That's not true. Thank you, Richard, for finding this information. And we'll also go over his appeal. Investigators say the French Quarter stabber, he was the French Quarter stabber, may be responsible for the murders of 5 men who died within a block of the noisy strip joints and jazz parlors of Bourbon Street. I mean, they did make, Richard shared with him, they did make a book on it. I would say it could be a book. They did. You can get it on Amazon. The 5 men, all of whom lived alone, were stabbed to death during the 8-week period beginning with the Valentine's Day murder of Robert Gary. The latest killing was Thursday when a 77-year-old man was found in his apartment with 50 stab wounds. Holy cow. It seems to me if the same individual has committed these atrocious crimes, then this individual is deteriorating very fast in his mental activities, and he needs to be caught in a hurry. Minyard said the Thursday murder of Ernest Premier fit a pattern of established all 4 earlier killings, all of which occurred within a 20-block area of the Lower French Quarter. Investigators and residents of the area, however, noted one of the major differences Premier's death was that the earlier victims were homosexuals, leading to a growing fear that the killer was preying on the French Quarter gay community. There was a lot of speculation before the last killing, but I've known Premier for the last 10 years. To my knowledge, he was not gay. And I don't know which killing, again, this was the 5th, and they said that he was found guilty of 3. The 4th, he never even said he was innocent of. He just said, I was found not guilty. At least he was being honest about that part. I don't get how you parole. This is crazy. Really? Really? You would live next to him? Really? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Who asked for his last name be withheld in the last two earlier killings? I knew that the people were gay, said Michael. We knew one of the people because he was a sponsor of the gay service. The person I knew from the Quarter, the area was premier, was killed, however, is a frequent by gays who often gather in the French Quarter street, socialized before this last killing. Everything seemed to point to the French Quarter stabber. Police put a special 5-man investigative team on the killing Thursday. Can you imagine this 5-man team rolling in their graves right now? They would have had no idea that he would ever be paroled. They were slain or found dead, whereas Robert Gary, 47, Dumaine, 14, Jane McClure, 1230. I don't know what these things are. Claire was slain in the residence without sign of a struggle. Seville Delano both worked for Music 65 Canal and were acquainted but not very well. McClure was stabbed 10 times just outside the French Quarter in a vacant lot behind Exxon service station. The latest victim's body was found at 7:30 a.m. Thursday, crouched in a kneeling position in the living room floor with the ground floor apartment. The body was clad in a shirt and underwear. It was not clad. The body was not clad in a shirt or underwear. Then is this article. And again, thank you, Richard. So now the suspect was arrested, and Richard provided many more articles on this, but I just kind of handpicked some of them. New Orleans relatives. Okay. New Orleans AP relatives and his transsexual roommate described Warren Harris, 16, as a troubled youth with a history of petty thefts, nothing to indicate he could be a killer who terrorized the homosexual community in the French Quarter. Police booked Harris Thursday with the murders of 4 men. Coroner's report indicated that 3 of the victims had engaged in homosexual relations before they were stabbed to death. The 4th was an elderly man who neighbors said was not of that sexual orientation. Police supported Clarence warned earlier this week that a single killer seemed to be preying on these men and asked help in finding the slayer. Police, acting on a tip, said they arrested Harris Wednesday evening in a connection with the armed robbery and attempted murder of a French seaman. So this was now another attempted murder, right? While he was being questioned, Harris spoke of a revulsion. He spoke of a revulsion for homosexuals and admitted the other killings, officers said. His mother and his grandfather, a minister, were present during the interrogations, officer said. Unless he has a split personality, I can't see him doing that. I think another person was involved to attack them sexually, and Warren may have taken the money. Funny, he had the 21 write-up, which is sexual offense. Yeah. Then this is the article where he gets, I think, officially arrested. So revulsion for homosexuals, said reason for number of deaths. Police have charged a stocky teenager with the revulsion of homosexuals with being the French Quarter stabber. I mean, he has his own name, the French Quarter stabber, who murdered 4 men in the past 2 months. Warren Harris, 16, was booked Thursday with the 4 murders. It occurred in the French Quarter apartment within 18 blocks of each other. He originally was arrested Wednesday for the attempted murder of a French seaman. So he was accused of 4 murders. He was found guilty of 3, and he was caught in the attempted of a 5th. And we know that there were, I mean, it's just, you cannot make this stuff up. Police who believe 3 of the victims were homosexuals said Harris spoke of a revulsion of them. Police Superintendent Clarence Guriso refused to discuss details of the investigation of the arrest, so he could jeopardize the trial because the suspect is juvenile. And he said that he did say Harris made a statement to detectives. The suspect's mother and grandfather, a minister, were present during the questioning. Short, stocky youth was dwarfed by the guards as he entered the magistrate's court Thursday. He had been living less than a mile from the killings. He had a transsexual roommate, police said. All indications are that he's not gay, said police spokesman. Why, his roommate's lucky, huh? He didn't. We don't believe that he was connected with the community. Harris' mother said he did not believe his son was guilty. I know my child, he's not abstained, but I don't honestly think that he's capable of something like this. He's a good-hearted child. He likes girls. He has a lot of girlfriends. Mr. Harris said Warren dropped out of school last year after 8th grade. She said that he was confined to State Youth Institution in 1974, attempted auto theft, had also been arrested for theft and purse snatching. Wow, I'm surprised they didn't give him life for the purse snatching. I know he do a lot of things, but not that, she said. 5 men who lived alone were stabbed to death in their near French Quarter since February 14th. Officers said, however, Harris wasn't involved in the death of James McClure, who was stabbed during a street robbery near Quarter March 2nd. Stabbings occurred in an area dominated by... Okay, They needed to catch him. Okay. Can't make it up. You can't make it up. Let's go to his appeal. March 3rd, 1980. The defendant, Warren Harris Jr., was charged by a grand jury indictment of 4 counts of first degree. He was tried jointly on all 4 counts. After jury trial, the defendant was found not guilty on the first count and guilty as charged on count 2, 3, and 4. I wonder what jury found him. It's the same jury. I guess they felt like, whatever. We have enough to get him, so let's just, I can't believe they didn't give him the death penalty. I mean, they were handing those things out like candy, and he went to trial. It's strange, right? The jury, after sentencing hearing, recommended that the defendant be sentenced to life imprisonment without benefit of parole. The trial court sentenced the defendant in accordance with the jury's recommendation of 3 life sentences. The sentences to run consecutively. For reversal of his convictions and sentences, the defendant relies upon 86 assignments of error grouped into 46 arguments. Because only 4 of these arguments raise serious issues, we will here discuss only arguments 3, 4, 9, and 26. At trial, the state adduced the following facts. During an 8-week period between February 13th and April 6th, 1977, 4 murders occurred in the French Quarter in New Orleans. Investigation revealed that the victims were robbed and stabbed to death after engaging or attempting to engage in homosexual activities. When the police learned through a confidential informant on April 12, 1977, of the defendant's possible involvement in the unrelated armed robbery and shooting, the defendant was taken to the 1st District Police Station the next day, where he made an inculpatory statement implicating himself in the unrelated armed robbery. The defendant was then transferred to the Juvenile Bureau, where it was then learned that the defendant had been an acquaintance of one of the murder victims. Oh, no, but I forgot. How could I forget, guys? How could I forget? He has a low risk score. I'm losing my mind. The PhDs give serial killers low risk scores. The guy's a serial. He's the classic. It's the poster child. Oh my God. I mean, he had his memo, he had his target, he had his weird hysteria against his thing against homosexuals. This is his thing. Over a period of time, he would have kept going and going and going. What did we just see? Is this not a news story? How is this not a news story? Juvenile, when it was learned that the defendant had been acquainted with one of the murder victims, he was questioned to whether the frequent the French Quarter and associated with homosexual. Shortly thereafter, the defendant made oral statements in which he admitted to 4 murders. Subsequently, 3 written statements were taken in which the defendant admitted to killing each of the 4 victims. A written statement as to the 4th killing was not taken because the defendant's mother requested that the questioning be discontinued on account of the defendant's fatigue. Yeah, I guess after you go through all of them, huh? pretty tiring. It's a lot of murders to talk. Wait, I'm going to have a service interruption here. It did make the news, on CNN and everything. But let's first start with this, and then we'll go back to the report. It did make the news.
The serial killer who spent 46 years at Angola has been granted parole. When he was just 16, Warren Harris Jr. robbed and stabbed at least 3 men. He was convicted and sentenced to life in 1977. But in 2017, a Supreme Court ruling made Harris and around 300 other Louisiana prisoners who were sentenced to life as juveniles eligible for parole. Since at least 120 of these so-called juvenile lifers has been released. Harris, now 63, will be under state parole supervision for the rest of his.
Here's the article on CNN. It's a good one. I'll put the link in the description. It really goes down the entire. It's well written. Jerry Ledoux, parole member Jerry Ledoux, who voted in favor of parole, told Harris that before a decision, she often asked herself, "Would I be afraid to live next door to this person? I believe that you're ready for the street," she said. Okay, let's see what happens when he moves next door to you. Oh my gosh, it goes through all of it in detail. Again, the only one who denied him was the sheriff. But this is a good article. But anyways, let's go back to. So it did make the news, and the world is watching. There's a bunch of articles on it. I just wonder if anyone is upset as I am. I mean, he has his own Wikipedia page. I mean, this is this is just crazy. Okay. So, in support of his argument, the confession were not voluntarily. The defendant contends that the state failed to rebut the defendant's allegations as inculpatory statements made under duress. At the hearing, the motion suppressed the defendant testified, although he was not struck, kicked, or otherwise physically abused, his statements were not voluntary. Harris testifies that during the course of the questioning, the officers threatened to take me off and kill me and throw me in the river, which, I mean, why not? I believe that could happen in Louisiana in the 70s. Tell me that if I didn't confess the murders, they were going to kill me, beat me. When asked whether he signed the waivers to the rights form being a signature, Harris stated that he was forced to sign them. In a brief, the defendant contends that the state failed to rebut the defendant's allegations that he was threatened and coerced into making inculpatory statements and that signing the waivers and the rights and forms. Testimony from each of these officers specifically refuted defendant's testimony that he was threatened to make the inculpatory statements and coerced into signing them. At the same time, I just don't believe a word he says. So, let's see. At the time of his confession, the defendant was 16 years old and had completed the 7th grade. Psychiatric evaluation indicated his IQ estimate to be 75 and 100, and that he was well-oriented in time, place, person, and situation. Two of the reports noted that although the defendant was not well-educated, he spoke in a very deliberate manner and surprisingly elegant, spontaneous vocabulary. Testimony at the hearing on the motion to suppress indicated that the defendant's first contact with police officers at the Duke motel after the officers had learned from a confidential informant that one of the persons involved in the robbery and shooting of a seaman was in room 18 of the motel. Patrolman Fickle testified that he and his partners identified themselves as policemen and told the defendant that he was a suspect in the shooting and robbery and advised the defendant of his Miranda rights. The officer testified that because the defendant was a juvenile and it was a department policy to have parents present during the interviews of the juveniles, he requested that the defendant accompany him to the first district station. The defendant voluntarily accompanied them to the station. He again advised of his constitutional rights and asked whether his mother and father would be contacted. Officers attempted to contact the defendant's mother unsuccessful at the time. The defendant then volunteered the information and he was involved in the robbery, but had not shot the French seaman. Defendant then again advised his Miranda rights and signed a waiver rights form. The defendant was then formally arrested in armed robbery and attempted murder of the French seaman and was taken to the Juvenile Bureau. Approximately 2.5 hours after he was initially brought to the police station, the defendant was questioned as to whether he frequented the French Quarter and associated with homosexuals, and then volunteered that he was a witness to the stabbing death of one of the four murder victims. The defendant identified the victim's assailant as Cliff and picked out a photograph of one of Clifton Meeks at the perpetrator of the crime. It was after the officers had failed to locate Meeks that he inquired whether the defendant could give any more information about Meeks' whereabouts, and that the defendant volunteered that he and not Meeks had done the stabbing. The defendant was then again read his rights. The officers continued to question the defendant and then orally confessed to killing each of the four victims. At the time, the defendant's mother, who had finally been contacted, arrived at the station. The defendant was again advised of his rights and the presence of his mother and his grandfather a part of the time. The defendant gave the 3 written statements, one not fully completed, used at trial. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. They basically go through different parts about whether his confession was allowed or whether he was illegally arrested and blah, blah, blah. We're going to jump to the question of whether the defendant possessed the requisite criminal intent to murder these victims was a serious issue at trial. This is what they're claiming. The defendant did not take the stand. The defense argued that Harris attempted to defend himself only after he was sexually assaulted by each of his victims, right? He just keeps ending up in that situation where, well, what can you do? He has to defend himself. The issue of self-defense was raised. The state had the burden of proving that the killings were not in self-defense. There was, therefore, a real and genuine issue as to the defendant's specific intent to kill. Again, this is his writing this appeal. The evidence of the 4 acts, which were strikingly similar and great probated value to show that the defendant most probably did not act in self-defense in stabbing each of the 4 victims within an 8-week period, while a single instance of a killing in self-defense may rationally and hypothetically be occasioned by an act in self-defense. 4 similar killings by the same person in an 8-week period span under peculiar similar circumstances are not nearly as likely to be in self-defense. Maybe the biggest understatement of the century, not nearly as likely to be in self-defense. No kidding. Because these other crimes would be admissible and pure to share the defendant and possess a requisite criminal intent and would have been admissible in each of the 4 separate trials if the offenses were severe. We do not find that the trial court's denial of motion to severe blah, 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 outweighed effects of admission of the crimes was not, in our view, incorrect. The state's separate presentation of evidence of the offenses. The jury's finding that the defendant guilty of only 3 of the 4 murders satisfied us. The number of offenses and the complexity of the facts did not confuse the jury. We therefore conclude that the trial court did not err in refusing to sever the counts. His determination and the trial of all 4 counts is appropriate to promote a fair determination of the defendant's guilt or innocence of each offense, considering the principles enunciated in the court error. Okay. They talk about the police officers when they made the arrest. They actually go through the cross-examination of those police officers. I'll put the links in the description. What I was looking for is actually details of the actual crimes, but I don't think they list it. Outside of those newspaper articles. Who would have thought that a serial killer would get paroled? And I thought it was a bad hearing. I thought, completely dishonest about it. I didn't hear any remorse at all. But it's crazy. I realized I said earlier that the book was on Amazon. I just double checked. It was actually on eBay. And I looked at the link about an hour ago, and the book was there, and I just checked the link again to look at the name of the book, and the book is sold. So apparently other people are finding interest in this story. It's no longer available, the book. It's there's this story made, it seems like a gay history month. It's quite this is a big story, and it's just beyond me. But hey, I'm a broken record already. And what do I know? What do I know? I mean, the algorithm says he has a low risk score, and apparently Ledoux would want to live next to him. She'd be completely okay with it. And, the Parole Project, they're going to do a great job. What can you say? You can't make it up. I sadly won't be surprised if we see him again in the news sometime soon. You can't. But again, what do I know? And you wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it. I know I wouldn't. Thank you again, Richard. And with that,